Thank you, Speaker. Just two clarifications to Minister Fu. The first has to do with the notion of whether we are indeed calling for a higher rate. The median I suggested was $100 per tonne. And it is true, certainly, that in the long run, we seek for something of that nature for a good reason, as I explained, that it was the midpoint of what is scientifically credible and defensible. Now, that said, I think it's important to distinguish between the level, the appropriate level, versus the manner by which we get to that level, the glide path, if you will. The analogy is to think about how one might choose to target one's weight loss journey. First, you choose a target weight. Let's say I really wish to be 65 kilograms.
Mr. Jamus, what is your clarification?
Yes. So the clarification then is whether the ministry sees or does not see the merits of separating these two decisions about the appropriate level of the carbon tax versus the glide path to get there. Now, my second clarification has to do with something that she said about how businesses cannot operate without certainty when we do not know what the carbon tax is going to be. I'm befuddled because, of course, even now, government routinely alters levers of policy, such as the interest rate. When there is uncertainty on a year-to-year basis about the level of interest rate, yet businesses continue to invest. Put it another way, let's say the ministry telegraphed that it was originally going for 25...
Again, what is the clarification?
I'm getting there, sir. So originally, the ministry telegraphed the $25 a tonne rate next year, and we entered into a recession. Would she believe that businesses would then be very upset if we said that we would scale this $25 a tonne back to something lower to eventually raise it subsequently?
I think Mr. Speaker, Professor Lim started his speech earlier saying that, you know, we have the theory right, but we need to get the implementation right. So I like to maybe ask him for his suggestion of how the government should be positioning the carbon tax in his way. What will be your target? Is $100? If it's long run, which year? Is it 2030 still?
Just to be clear, the government has not also committed to a 50 to 80.
Oh, we have 50 to 80 is our range. So what is your range?
And that was well stated, 58 to 133 with the midpoint of being 100.
Okay, so that's your range is higher than the government, is it correct?
The lower bound is lower than the government's upper bound.
50 to 80, yours is 58 to 133.
Yes, the lower bound that I gave you is lower than the government's upper bound.
All right, okay. So can you please try to tell me, if you are the Minister of Sustainability and Environment, how would you glide to this number? Well, how would you glide? Okay, this is 2022. We are end of 2022. You're going to go out and say, company, this is the new glide path. How will you describe your glide path?
That was the content of my speech. I suggested that we could do it incrementally, the way that the ministry has suggested, but I also suggested that we could allow the specific level to adjust upward and downward according to economic conditions.
So are you then saying that we can go out to the world and say, sorry, I've made the 2030 NDC on the basis of certain economic conditions, and now that the economic conditions are bad, there's a war out there, there is high inflation and energy, my NDCs don't count because I need to glide further out?
No, but I think I was clear that the adjustments upwards and downwards are the same way that business cycles go upward and downward. So you would have it lower in a given year because of economic conditions, but when things picked up, you would raise it back so that you met the original targets.
So you are suggesting a very variable carbon tax rate ends with 58 to 133, but without knowing how it's going to get there. Not even knowing what 2024 is going to be.
I think you would set a target, but be able to adapt to economic conditions, the same way the interest rates are routine.
Rate for 2024?
As I said, it's not complicated. You set a target.
What is that rate? What is the number?
We can go with the government's proposed number, say start with $25,
Okay, so
as I said in my speech.
2025, are you going to stay with $25 as well? Or
We would have to look at economic conditions.
So I'd like to repeat.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I understand that when a member asks a question, the other member sits down, question is answered, vice versa. There's some decorum between both
I apologize for
parties.
that. I will sit down. Okay. Please, can you please tell me, describe to me your carbon tax glide path in numbers? Because I'm a business, I need to know. I speak on behalf of the business. I need to know. Can you please tell me with some certainty what is that variable portion? Even if you say 25 for 2 years to come, 45, I'm not too sure, but what will be the variation?
So I'm happy to clarify. Again, we are not opposed to the original path. So for the next year and the subsequent year, we are comfortable with going with that $25 that was originally there. But I'm pushing for the flexibility to adjust it upward or downward just to take account of the fact that economic conditions may alter, the same way we do for interest rates.
I think that, Mr. Speaker, this is not a fiscal policy. This is a policy to change our energy mix and our energy use. So whether there is going to be an economic downturn or not, this is a change that we all need to make. And members have spoken so passionately about the need to address the tragedies of commons, the climate change that is helping us. So are we going to delay further? No. The answer is we all need to change. If there is an economic problem, if there's interest rate problem, of course we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it in other ways. But the signal to the companies must be that this is a path that the government is going ahead. We will have to make investments with these numbers in mind. Bearing in mind that our investments in the petrochemical industry or in the power generation industry is multi-year. Multi-year. So if we have targets, carbon tax rates that cannot be even certain for the next 4, 5, 6 years, how can they make long-term projections? I find it very difficult for companies to do that. I'll find it very difficult for financiers, for banks to also do that. And here, I think I'm receiving slightly mixed messages. The message is, we want to fly the environmental flag. We want to be sustainable. We want to be able to address our constituents who want us to, be as green as possible. But when it comes to the hard decision of making changes, of making company change and invest in renewables, reduce efficiency, reduce utility, reduce water, circular economy, reduce waste. Hang on, I think there's an economic condition and therefore, So we have to decide for ourselves. Is this carbon tax something that we need to do? And if we need to do we need certainty? If we need certainty, how do we address conditions that we do not foresee? If we have a COVID-19 again, touch wood, hope that we'll never have it, but if we have a COVID-19, we have a major recession, of course we have to think about ways to cushion. But that doesn't mean that we are turning back to fossil again. I mean, that's the message that we have been telling all the large emitters in the world in COP. Even though there's energy crisis out there, please don't turn your eyes away from the problem. So I hope that members will support what we are doing, understand that we are not blind to concerns, except that we need to give clarity to companies, to invest, to change, to adopt a way of low carbon production that we cannot delay anymore, even as we are confronting some major challenges out there.